right.
Get this shared.
Copy the link.
Got that done.
I swear sometimes Twitter turns on the audio and sometimes it doesn't.
There we go. Easy peasy, baby.
Wheat.
Yeah, I'm gonna once we're done with this, I'm gonna go work out.
Get all your cowboy anger out.
Oh yeah.
That is the worst. That is the worst.
All right, man. Hit the jingle when you're ready, baby.
Alrighty.
Good morning and welcome to episode 71 of the Slightly Above Average Gaming Podcast. I'm J007TV, joined as always by the homie Sub1KD. How are you this morning, sir?
Doing well. Just there's a marathon going by my house today, so we are all housebound this morning. Even if I wasn't doing the podcast, we're not going anywhere.
Oh, nice.
Running the road. Every year they go by, and every year I ask them, hey, what are you running from? And nobody finds that funny.
Well, I mean, the awesome thing is, I don't know about you, but I love those like weekend days where like I don't have to really do shit. I can just stay home, don't have to go anywhere, those kind of things. My wife, on the other hand, likes to go run around, run errands, and quote, get stuff done or whatever. And I'm like, dude, I just want to chill, you know? So days like you're having today, I can definitely appreciate those. But I mean, obviously,
there's no relaxation today.
No?
Oh, no. I have got put on a project at work that I am happy to work on, but also it's going to suck. Which actually I probably will be streaming more while I do it because there's nothing else to do while I work. And then we're in the middle of rehabbing the garage. So, I did this space and then everything, part of the deal was, well, okay, everything else has to get done too. So
there's always a catch.
Yeah. Well, so here's the problem. Like when we moved in, one thing they didn't tell us is that the drainage was horrible. And so in the winter, like when it rains, that this garage could flood. Wasn't mentioned, which, is what it is. However, we discovered that in back-to-back years of the most torrential, like generational storms, like if you remember a couple years ago, there was that house by the freeway, like the freeway was underwater and the house, there was like, a picture of like a house flooded out.
Well, I mean, last year during several episodes, you guys had a fucking monsoon rolling through here, and we were actually worried about whether we were going to be able to stay online. So yeah.
And so, but it was just torrential downpour. So it flooded, and so it was like a race to salvage what we could by just throwing everything in a pile. Mm-hmm. And then letting it kind of dry out. And the problem is you do that and it's like, then you got to sort through the pile later. And with everything else going on, that just kept getting punted down the road and then nobody wanted to deal with it. So now we're dealing with it. And so my wife, she wants a grow station to do her plants, not those kind of plants, the eating kind. And then the, what's it called? She has like a whole section she wants. I want to put a little gym in there. She needs a second kitchen. We have a little, like a couch and like a hangout area. So I've got a TV mounted with, with one of my Xboxes and, all the kids can come and play and hang out. So, it's like a game space. Then my office and a workshop and all kinds of shit. So it's a lot, but I've been off term for a couple of weeks and working on that. But I am kind of, so I will be, like I mentioned, I'll be coming back to stream, I think, for the next couple of months. Streaming a dog shit game called Mount and Blade 2, which is, it sucks. It sucks so much. But I'm literally getting paid to play it. So I accept.
It's always fun to get paid to play video games. Well,
that it does.
It depends on the state of the game you're playing too. I mean, that makes a difference too. But
yeah, I suddenly retract a lot of complaints I have about COD because I could be forced to play this all the time.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, Call of Duty is not the only game, and Warzone are not the only games that are that have their issues. Like all of these games have their issues. I think sometimes just because like that's the game that most of us main, at least in our circles, that we can forget that, and so. I mean, gaming in general. I was talking with a couple guys last night. I asked about Apex. I heard it's down bad. I don't know. I don't play it. And we're going to cover some things from EA a little bit later in the episode, which, I'm happy to discuss some of it anyway. But yeah, like this week, this last week I was more or less local. I took a day trip into Oklahoma City, and then coming up, I've got to head down to Houston for my first market visit there, and having dinner at a nice steakhouse on Wednesday night with my boss and a couple of our clients. So that'll be pretty awesome. And then, then it'll be the freaking weekend again.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And by the time it's the weekend again, we'll be in season 2, so
Correct.
We'll have a lot of stuff added, a lot of in the game. Not a lot of changes to Warzone, but hopefully the changes they do give us are impactful and meaningful and important. And so that's kind of what we have looking forward to it.
Do you have like the roadmap?
I happen to have the roadmap pulled up right here.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll
go through it.
We're going to cover that, but I mean, before that, like what's been going on with you in Black Ops 6? How's that been?
It sucks. Mainly because I'm trying to finish the camo grind and I'm stuck with the SVD, which is dog shit. And we're at the phase where there just aren't bad players in the game right now. So it's kind of like there's nowhere to like set up with that thing. And that's not a run and gun type thing anyways. That it just takes so long to get on track and so long between shots. And because I haven't even hit max level on it, so I don't even have rapid fire available. So I can't even like run and gun and like go toe to toe. It's like you hit your first shot and you miss it and you're dead. And if you hit it, you're probably getting a hit marker anyways because it's 2 shots at almost every location. And so the literal time, like you can hit someone who's not looking at you, they can turn, burn, and kill you before the gun will cycle and fire a second shot, which is phenomenal. I love that. It's my favorite. So yeah, it sucks. I log in. It's probably doing hell on my skill rating. So next season it'll probably be great.
Dude, I'm still trying to get that. And I haven't checked in a couple days, but I'm not the only one. Joker was trying to get his as well and getting the same fucking error code. And maybe the system's overloaded, or maybe they're just like, fuck you, I'm not providing you that shit.
Let me put this clearly for everyone because, I've had to deal with compliance stuff like this before. So like the EU is really strict on this. So that one of the companies I worked for, we worked with the, we had customers in the EU and we serve the EU. So we have to abide by their laws for their residents. We literally had a Mac Mini in the office that served those. I'm not kidding. Like it was on somebody's desk, just plugged. Like, I don't think it was even wired in. I think it was on Wi-Fi. And the frequency with which it was used made the Mac Mini probably overkill for our needs. We could have done like a Raspberry Pi and served them with that for the usage of it. But they grabbed, and it wasn't even new. It was like a couple years old. They just had one in storage. So they configured that as a server and it served, like it handled the requests. And we got like 1 or 2 a year out of like, I don't know, how many customers did we have? We had like, at the time, I think we had 20 million customers. So, really, we really put a lot of effort into that. And then, so like, I'm sure their situation is very similar, where it's literally, they do it because they have to. They put no effort into it, no resources to it. They don't give a shit.
Oh, I'm sure.
And then all of a sudden, some creator's like, hey, guess what you can do? And everyone went, I want to do it too. And the poor Mac Mini on someone's desk who's probably been laid off. Nobody probably knows what that thing does. It just has been plugged in for years and they just leave it there. Is probably like melting down. So
yeah. Well, and I know people that have been able to get theirs, and I know a few that have been trying not to. But what's funny? Like now that I think about it, before Exclusive Aces video came out on that, I remember seeing somebody from, I believe, the UK tweet something about their laws that if you wanted your data from Activision, that they had to comply, and it was within a few weeks. I don't, I'm not sure on the exact timing, but that's pretty interesting. And then Ace's video comes out, and then other
Blows
people
the
are
lid
getting
off of it.
yeah, other people are
I mean,
getting
he
their
got
skill
500
ratings.
people willing to submit his service, like their data to him.
Yeah,
for his most recent video, which is crazy. And I plan, and I think we owe him a thank you for making that data set that he used available. So he made sure it was purged of individual information and made it available. So I'm going to grab it probably after this recording and poke at it because I think my data set is a massive outlier because of what I do, because I do this camo grind, because I play certain ways, right? I think a lot of people they play normal for a lot of it. And I approach the camo grind very clinically.
Yeah. So I want to see mine because I have not done camo grind until this iteration of Call of Duty. So I really do want to take a look at mine and just to see where it's at. Because like I said, I have the only game. So going back to like 2019, and I'm talking strictly like multiplayer wise, the only games that I did not struggle in have been Cold War. I did not struggle initially. I never had to play catch up or anything. Cold War. Fucking Vanguard of all games. And I started that game like a month late because I didn't buy it on launch. I wasn't planning on even playing it, but Battlefield shit the bed, which we've talked about before. And then, this iteration of, Black Ops, like I have not struggled on that at all. Whereas the Infinity Ward offerings, both of those, I struggled on, and maybe not so much Modern Warfare 2, but definitely on Modern Warfare 1, 2019. And then, it literally took me to the last fucking day just to get even on the multiplayer for Modern Warfare 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so that's what I was grinding the last like 2 weeks of that because I was that fucking close.
Yeah. No, I think that is legitimate. I think there is a how do I put it? There's definitely going to be a difference in how the skill rating balances. So for me, it's like because I can go. My data actually goes all the way back to Modern Warfare 2019.
Yeah,
so
that's where it started.
I have 2019 all the way. So not everybody does for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Weird.
Probably because I'm not going to say it. They might have gotten banned and have new accounts, so their data's no good.
Right.
I'm kidding. Probably not true. Maybe. Who knows? But anyway, and it's funny because 2019, my data is pretty consistent most of the way through, and it starts out low because I didn't, my first time back in COD in years, and I gave it zero effort. And then it kind of gradually climbs until early in Cold War when it goes, I actually put effort into it, and you can see it more in Warzone, the Warzone data where it's like all of a sudden there's jumps, right, in skill. And it jumps and jumps and jumps. And then Vanguard is a little bit more dicey because I only played Vanguard for I didn't play multiplayer in Cold War or in what's it called? I didn't play it in Warzone, or I didn't play it in Cold War or Vanguard very much, mostly just to grind guns. But Warzone tracks pretty well, right? So very consistent.
That's what I also want to see too. That's definitely what I want to see. I want to see that Warzone data because, starting in 2020 when Warzone came out, and obviously I'm thinking about it in terms of KD, right? But there's obviously more to it than that. And I mean, I think those stat tracker websites, they all showed time moving, those kind of things. So obviously those things were being tracked from day one, and they were built into the API. That's how the stat tracker websites got that shit.
Well, hey, you know what's funny?
Hmm.
Your stat, like there's only a few columns that really have anything other than a very loose connection to your score.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those one of the strongest connections to your skill rating is time spent moving.
So that's funny you mentioned that. I've played this last week or so a couple times with Pro Reborn, and he got his data, and he said it was funny because I can't remember if he was talking about multiplayer or Warzone, but there was like several matches where time spent moving was literally 100%. That's fucking wild. But his skill rating was also at like 400 or 500 also. Which is,
well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like high skilled players, their data is very much consistent because of just how they play.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's what makes them higher skilled players. And so I think that there's not as much movement room for that. For me, and this was what was really interesting for me, is starting in 2022, starting with MW2 is when I picked up the camo grinding. I said, I'm gonna do it, right? First time I ever ground camos. 2019 was the first time I ever got gold guns on anything. And I only got a couple of them, and mostly it was just almost accidental, right? I think the M4 I ended up with, like, I needed a couple long shots, and so I just went and died a lot in what's that map? Anyway, just died a lot in multiplayer trying to get that gold. But in 2022 in Modern Warfare 2, I decided I'm going to actually grind camo, and the skill rating behaves very differently between previous games and 2022 forward. And you can look at the skill rating and you can tell exactly when I finished the camo grind, because my skill rating is like up and down, up and down, up and down. It's plus 450. Plus 450, right? Which is a huge swing in skill. And then as soon as I'm done, there's a little bit of adjustment period as the game tries to figure out what the hell just happened, because I went from being a very inconsistent, all over the place player to a much more consistent player. And then it just locks in and it sits around 75 plus or minus. And it's very stable from there on out. And then minus a few instances, like you can tell when a new gun comes out and that gun might have weird challenges to it, and you can see that kind of. So I went back and I've cross-referenced some of those moments with seasonal introductions of new weapons and stuff, and you can see that in the data of like, oh, I must be grinding this gun and leveling this gun up, because all of a sudden my skill rating bobbles again. But it's so fascinating how much they're paying attention to how we're playing.
No, like I said before, I just feel like that's overcomplicating it. And I think that adds a lot to some of the frustration that some of us have had with like their matchmaking practices. But so Black Ops 6, we've both been playing that a bit. I'm like almost done. I have the fucking point blank kills, which have taken me forever to get with that SOG, because that shit is the most inconsistent gun I think I've used in this game so far.
Do you have the dual wield unlocked yet?
Yeah, I have that gun maxed out.
Put that on and just run up and slam them. Point blank kills like that, because that'll slam kids real fast.
I mean, I only need like 8 left, but it feels like it's taken me 4 fucking days of playing to try to get that done, because once that happens, I'm gonna start unlocking diamond for several of these weapons. So I didn't get to play any Black Ops yesterday because I started late, and also too, dude, I swear to God, I cannot wait until I get to where it's display capture and I don't have to deal with this fucking capture card, because I get so tired of clicking on OBS and it's not picking up anything. And it takes me like 20 minutes of unplugging, starting, restarting, shutting down, like everything, dude, several times, deactivating the source. Like, dude, it is so fucking frustrating dealing with the external capture card. This Elgato 4K, it is not plug and play like they said. But I also, in fairness, I had the same issue with my HD60S too. So
I will say I don't like Elgato for the very reason that they are very so. Here's the thing with software companies is they like to create ecosystems, right? Apple's phenomenal at this, and they're very well known for it. And the poors of the world hate it because they get labeled with green text, and we all know. I'm kidding, by the way, except we all know. But Elgato wants to do the same thing, right? They have so many. You look at all of their things, and they all want to be app controlled on your PC,
right?
Which is all fine and good. It is what it is. I don't have a problem with them doing that, but there's no way to get away from it. Like if you're not embedded in their software suites, like they don't like their stuff to work very well. And that drives me nuts because you run into all kinds of problems, right? Like you have other things fighting back and forth. It's always trying to steal your microphone input. It's always trying to create new settings and whatnot. And the reality is that's just it. To me, it's not good, right? Like it's not a good way to do it.
Well, and like if you look at like my Stream Deck, right? Like I have my scene set up, I have my starting, my gameplay, be right back, those kind of things, and it's like a lot of times lately when I fire up everything and I'm going through like my pre-stream checks, like there's a fucking delay. Or it just doesn't do shit when I push the gameplay because that's the one that I want to see, right? Like that's the one where I want to make sure everything is working, where it's capturing the screen, all that stuff. And it's just delayed for whatever reason, or it doesn't work at all. Like it doesn't transition to that scene.
There are auth issues. It like has to reset the authorization and all kinds of stuff. I don't, Elgato is one of those things where it's like if you buy everything Elgato, I think most people have a better experience overall.
Sure.
For me, I find their hardware overpriced for what they provide, and a lot of that comes from a name brand and and the fact that if you don't know anything about anything and you just want to get on, like just buying Elgato stuff, they do make it easy for that, but. Yeah, like the idea that you can just plug it in and have it work is not great. It's one of the reasons I actually went with third-party capture cards for my setups and have been really happy with it. Like for when I first started, I grabbed an EVGA X Pro 1, which did and I got it specifically because it allowed a 1440 pass through at 120 hertz. so I could game at 120. I could play on the TV at that, and then it would capture at 4K or 1080 or whatever you wanted, right? So like it had the pass through, so I could see it. The way so that was a huge W, and there's no software. It's all hardware encoded, right? So all the it's just a driver that auto installs when you plug it in. And so it's like everything, and it's like, you have to kind of look at the manual to set it up right the first time. And I haven't touched it since, and I've moved it to different setups, and it just works. And then I picked up a different company, like another off-brand one, same story. It just works. There's no external software. They don't try and pitch you on anything or lock you in on it, which I think is probably the most important part, is like, they're not tying you into their software ecosystem. And so
yeah, so that's the frustrating thing. And we got on that rabbit trail just because I was hoping to be able to get a couple games of Black Ops in last night before I hopped into Warzone. But again, we've talked about on this podcast several times, Black Ops 6 is functioning. Like whether you like the maps or not, the game is still functioning. It's not in a bad state as far as playability goes. It just comes down to, I think, preference.
Unless you're trying to get the SVD 5 kills without dying. Somebody wants to earn $1, they can log in and do it for me. So I'm just fucking done with this gun.
I'm trying to finish that gun too, dude.
It's terrible.
Yeah, I'm trying to finish that gun as well. Like I'm on my snipe, that and the DM10. I'm literally like, I think probably 1 or 2 matches away from maxing that out. And you know what, dude, I may actually run that in Warzone pubs. Might give that a run. I've been so like this week in Warzone pubs, I've been trying to at times like run just different shit because I am so fucking bored of the XM4. Oh my god, I'm so bored. But yeah, so
I have not run the XM4 in a while. I ran it for the first time last night.
it's really good, but it's just boring,
It's
bro.
really good. It's boring as shit. But it was like that 100-round mag. It's like, God, it's not even funny. Like how bad that thing is. Like it just delete it.
Yeah,
Just restrict it from Warzone. Like there's no point in it.
Yeah, I would not be disappointed if they took that out. Now, I mean, I tweeted this week, and I got a little bit of good feedback from it, but I asked the question. I'm like, would you be okay if the magazine sizes were 30, 45, and 60 max period for every AR? And the feedback that I got that was interesting, and I 100% agree with is, but it's also predicated on doing the weapon balancing like we've discussed before. Is someone mentioned the point that like the guns that like hit a little harder should be limited to like
Smaller
maybe
max.
45.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the old AMAX and the old Cold War AK, right? Like that.
Their
I
max is 45.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. But we're not at a place where they're balancing guns like that right now. I mean, most of these guns
They're not balancing guns at all.
Well, yeah,
they're just like, hey, here you go, have fun. Which is funny because there are a lot of viable guns out there, but the problem is that there's just a few guns. You know, the Jackal and the 100-round, XM4 are just so easy to use.
Yeah,
but there's no point in running anything else, right? Like. The Jackal's quick enough that you'll get first shot in, so you'll win the gunfight toe to toe. And then the XM4, you have 100 rounds and no recoil. It's the easiest gun in the world to use.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It legitimately is, but we'll see. We'll see if they fix it. But I mean, as far as like Warzone goes, overall, it's been pretty decent. But we had one bad night this week where we just could not catch a fucking break, and we had a couple cheaters here or there, but not anything that's like a deal breaker for me. And it's one of those things. It's like I'm not up until last night hadn't been really experiencing any of the like connectivity issues or anything for a while. Like it's been probably at least a week and a half or so minimum since I haven't experienced any disconnects, none of that. Last night it happened twice. It completely shut my shit all the way down, and I had to go back into it. And the night before that, I had a teammate that had that. But remember, before I told you, it was like that shit was happening like several times a night. So I feel like that part of it is getting better, at least for me. I'm not going to sit here and, discount that it's happening to other people on a more consistent basis because I don't know. I'm just telling you what like my experience is, and I know it's still an issue that they have to address, and hopefully they will. But like, yeah, Warzone has been fine. I did end up running like 3 matches of ranked last night, and like I said, I had Robeezy and fucking Icy Scopes, 2 former guests on our podcast that were in. I don't know if it was the exact same lobby, but you know how like you can check, right? Like you press start and then down on your thumbstick, and then you can see. It doesn't give you the exact snapshot of what's in your lobby, but you can see.
You can see
several,
a list of
yeah. And so I saw both of those guys in there. And that's me being a gold 3 and playing with 2 platinum 1s. Like if that doesn't tell you that the player count on the ranked side of things is down, because like I mentioned before, we've never had that issue until we hit diamond when it was Al Mazrah. Like it just wasn't like that. So yeah, but I mean like the games were okay. We went +1. I got they give you 1 match forgiveness every night, which I don't even remember them saying they were going to do that, but
they did.
I probably just missed it.
At announcement, they put that in there.
which is cool. So, and that's if you go negative. And then, so we went +1 because we finished like 5th or
I
something.
wish that was a token, right? Like you could save it.
Oh yeah. And choose which one you use it on. Yeah, exactly. So like the ones where you just fucking die off rip, because right now at gold 3, I'm -40 right off the rip.
Yeah.
So, that was a low kill game, and I ended up ratting my ass off. I died one time, and it was at the end, never went to the gulag, and that's how we were able to get some placement points. But the other one, we got shit on right off the rip, and then, and then we got another one that was a match forgiveness. So today, I'm hopping on this afternoon because you only had 2 more days left, man. 2 more days, and I'm trying to get into platinum at the very fucking least. Which
2 more. They end it before. Are they ending it before the season?
Well, what's weird? Well, okay, so when you look in game, and I don't know if it's right or not, but it says when you look at it, it says 2 days. So I don't know.
I mean, no, it could be like they. Memory serves. They close rank. They have closed ranked early before.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. So yeah, I'm trying to get that done, and that was kind of part of my frustration with having to start so late. I mean, dude, I ended up starting like fucking 2.5 hours later than I initially planned, but it's what happens. Wife wasn't feeling good. Son was somewhere. I had to pick him up, that kind of thing. So anyway, I was a little cranky when I started last night because of that. Cause you get to a point, like if you're starting at a certain point, you're not going to have anybody to fucking like the ranked squad is gone. It's done. They're already doing other shit, So yeah. But I'm gonna run ranked most of the day today, and if I can get into platinum, I'm just gonna quit, because the way they reset it is, even if I'm plat 1, I will stay plat 1 when the season restarts. They're not doing it like they did where you go back 1 full rank. So like I'll go back to gold 1. So
yeah,
at least that's the way I understood it.
No, that is, I believe that is correct. So we'll find out if it works. Always the big question, right? Does it work?
Yeah. So you had a doozy of a week content wise, and
somewhat, yeah.
And again, I told you this on the phone yesterday, and because we've had the conversation, and I'm like, dude, I can't sit and watch like a 16 or 17, 18 minute fucking video. The short form shit has just ruined me for that. But this one, I actually watched from start to finish, and first of all, I want to say it was very well done by you, as per usual. I think if you guys follow Sub1 on his YouTube or see any of his stuff on Twitter, it's usually pretty detailed, pretty organized, and he's able to put things in a way that people can understand them, which is great. So well done on your end. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Tox Mod? You don't have to go over the whole video, but let's recap it a little bit.
Well, let me first of all thank friend of the pod, Lipe, for previewing my video, because the first 3 takes were not what we would call acceptable. It was basically me just yelling at the camera about how stupid this is. And yeah, so thank you for talking me off the ledge and having me record it, reshoot it the way it came out, because I think it was much better. But essentially, it's the whole point was the voice moderation, right there. I came across a post a while back, a week or 2 ago, about someone pointing out that, that she's never been, it was some gal, and she was saying that she's never been voice banned, and she says all kinds of things. And then, her comments, and she said in her tweet that, I don't remember her name. I could look it up, but that will take too much time. But she said something that stuck with me that was kind of weird. She said, "I think you're not that you're all not being honest about how often you say the bad words."
Oh, I saw that tweet,
and so I was kind of like, "Wait a minute," because there's a lot of folks on here that claim to that have reported chat bans. And when you look at their stream, they don't say words like that. I mean, they talk shit like everybody else does, but they don't say the words, right? They don't slip it. I mean, they're on Twitch. You can't say the words on Twitch, right? Because otherwise Twitch gets mad. And so it caught me as strange, as I'm like, wait a minute. These are people that we can verify what they say and how they interact. And I mean, granted, they could play off stream, but most of these people I don't think do. And you can verify that they don't say the words. And so we've been led as players by Activision to believe that their system is basically, they're listening for the worst of the worst, the words that shan't be said, and they're trying to put the kibosh on that, which, you may disagree or not, but that's their goal. So I was kind of curious as to why that would be. So I decided to start digging. And of course, it's one of those things you scratch a little off the surface, and then you look down and you went, shit, this is a rabbit hole that goes very far down. And so I dove in and went all the way to the bottom. I don't think I actually hit the bottom of this company, but I dug enough to, figure out what they're doing. And essentially they have an AI system that will listen to you and make a guess as to your demographics and who you are, and then apply a set of standards of what you can and can't say based on who you are, and then modify it on the fly based on who can hear you. So literally, they're guessing who you are, and then they're changing the rules on what you can and can't say based on who's in your lobby. And you may or may not know who's in your lobby. So Warzone in particular, right? It can pick up voice comms from other people. And when you come to within proximity of one another, your conversation, which may or may not be acceptable amongst your friends, according to their system, suddenly becomes unacceptable because of who can hear you.
Let me ask you this, not to cut you off too much, but correct me if I'm wrong, but is Call of Duty rated and Warzone rated M or 18 plus?
I believe it's E for everyone, so all the children can come on, and we have to mind our language for that because all the children playing the game.
Well, it's funny because the other day, dude, I swear to God, this is the funniest shit. In the gulag, I hear this little kid talking, right? And I'm like, okay. And then I proceed to kill him. And then you hear him like, you know how like they start that screaming shit and it just gradually like goes higher pitch? I was fucking dying laughing, and somebody's like, did you kill a goddamn monkey in there or what? It sounded like a monkey screeching through the trees, dude. I was like, what the fuck? But my point about that is like, that's not really fair, because if you're adults playing an adult game and there happens to be a fucking kid around, it's like that tells me that if they're accounting for that, that tells me that they know damn well that people are not following the ESRB rating. They're not following,
which is a recommendation and a guideline. It's not law, by the way.
Yeah, but it's retailers won't sell them like a 12-year-old Call of Duty. Most won't. Like I know GameStop won't. Like
that's their personal policy.
Yeah,
that's not law.
Yeah,
so that's
no, I know. It's just their policy.
So,
like yeah.
So your situation is interesting because, and this is where I don't know, because so look, I made sure that everything I spoke about in that video, they talk about on their website. This company, not Activision, because Activision doesn't tell us anything, right? They just give us some smoke screen about, we just want to make sure the toxic goes away. Lies. But the company that they're using are very clear about what they do, and they're very open about everything and proud of it. But to give you an idea, and so this is an area I didn't talk about because I don't know, but I suspect based on what they've said and where people have reported catching bans, is that they listen to your entire session, right? So you log in, for example, ToxMod boots up, and then it watches, and then it listens to you from the moment you log in to the moment you log out, which is why people who are in private parties in the game, not in public, but privately, they still are subjected to it. It still listens to your group chats, right? And so, it either operates by game session, so every match, right, turns on and restarts, or it's your logged in session. And I believe it's the logged in session. And it may or may not catch your microphone prior to mute. So for example, if you mute your mic in the game, right, like that's, that's on console specifically, right? That's a software mute. It's not hardware. for a lot of, like, if you use a mute in the game. So people who mute their mics in the game, if you turn your mic off on a Switch, like that's a side. But if you just like, if you toggle yourself on or off in game, like they may or may not be able to still hear you, even though what you say is not broadcast out. So there's questions I have and I don't know answers to. But
interesting.
I suspect that they monitor you the entire time you're logged into Call of Duty, and so they understand who you are when you log in. They figure that out. So for your specific scenario, right, they would have known that that you are facing a child in the gulag. So if you had talked back to that child, you would have had a different set of rules than if you and I had faced each other in the gulag, and that they would have applied those rules to you. And they talk about it on their site. It is incredibly frustrating, especially since we as players aren't told. You know, and I actually had a game developer pop into my comments on YouTube and talk about how he develops for a children's game, which fine. You know, I don't disagree. A children's game made for kids should have very strong moderation. I don't have a problem with that. You want to put something like this in a kid's game and make sure, you know, grown adults aren't saying shit? Be my guest. Call of Duty is a game for grown-ups. Even though a lot of us don't act like grown-ups, it's a grown-up game for big boys and big girls and everybody in between. It's not a kid's game. And if kids play it, fine. You know, parental decisions are their own. But you have to know that you're allowing your kid to go into a scenario.
Well, that's why I didn't let my son play. And it's funny because, like, while we've been talking about this, I've been texting him because I had to ask him. I didn't let my son really start playing Call of Duty. Probably Vanguard was, and he was like 13, 14, whenever he's 16 now. But it's funny because, I asked him, because I know he's been chat banned a few times, and it turns out, it's about 7 or 8 times. He actually caught a month-long comms ban. But this is what I suspect, because this is some of it, and we don't use no words around here, or phrases on or offline. Like, that's just not something that's in our vocabulary, those kind of things. And so what I suspect is from him, I know I've caught him in there cursing, which I do that too, and he's trying to fucking blame that shit on me, but whatever. But I think that, you know how, like, what the kids say, how they're like, go kill yourself and shit like that. I think that phrase is probably tagged in there because that's considered bullying. Like, you know what I mean?
I'm
like,
sure.
I guarantee you that's probably what has gotten him banned several times because, and I've tried to tell him to fucking say that shit because, you know, you don't want to actually say that to somebody who really is truly having a mental health crisis, and then they do that. You know what I mean? You don't want to push somebody to that, right? So, like, I don't even say that shit either.
Even cheaters, much as it struggled to have to say that, even cheaters.
Yeah, so I just found it interesting because, you know, and now he's like, and I've only gotten one warning. That was from that guy that I bullied off in Plunder while I was on Mouse and Key, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was several months ago, and I can't believe that I haven't gotten comms banned myself. But it's also, too, again, I'm not using no words. It's mainly telling somebody they're a pussy or get fucked or, you know, something like that, you know, like, and maybe that's what they consider as like part of their quote trash talk. That's okay. I don't know. I just wish that they would let us know exactly what that is. Cause
they don't know what that is. That's the problem.
Yeah.
This is the problem. And this is what I've said from the beginning when they first announced it. They don't know. They don't have a list of words. There's no list of no words, right? It doesn't exist. It's all about the feels. It's about how their AI system thinks people feel about what you say. That's what it is. There's no hard and fast, this is off limits. Like, nothing's off limits. Depends on who you are and who you're talking to, right? And they have a whole section about it, and they talk about, like, and I don't want to get into the topic too much, but like, they have a whole section about what happens if the system thinks you're a person of color can you say the N-word? And their answer was basically yes.
I think the standard should apply the same to literally everybody.
I don't.
A no
I don't
word
disagree.
or phrase is a no word or phrase. Period. The fucking end.
Like if they want, yeah. If this was the thrust of my video. The point of it was that if you're going to come up with a list of stuff, like if I don't think you should moderate this at all. I think it's the wrong. But if you want to do so, if you say, look, we don't want certain no words going through chat, then give us a list of words we can't say. Give us a list of words and phrases that we cannot say. And you know what? We know they have lists because we see it in the in the text chat, right? You type words or phrases that they don't want you to say, it just stars out, right? Like if they really wanted to properly moderate it in a way that actually combats toxicity, they would just have a hard list of like words and phrases you cannot say. And if they wanted to use AI in this way, the correct application of it is when you say that word, it mutes you so that the word doesn't go through. And that's where it should stop. Like that's how it should work. You want to say a word you're not allowed to say, it mutes the word or it mutes the phrase. Like it just like that's a system that I don't like it. I don't think it belongs in Call of Duty, but if you want to control it, fine. Like that's the system that works. This whole AI bullshit that they have going on right now is a disaster. And look, in my day job, I work with AI. I know what it's capable of. I know what it's not capable of. And they are absolutely out of their depth right now trying to keep this moderation. And that's probably why nobody talks anymore, because everybody's banned.
It's not fucking, I mean, like you said several episodes ago when we were talking about just like the AI generated art, you said it's not ready yet. Like we're not at a place where we should be relying on it as much. You said that. You're like, it's not ready yet.
It's not.
And I don't know, like, I would think we're probably a few years out where that can be, should be a tool that's like heavily relied on.
I mean, look, let's be honest. It's not going to be ready and when it is ready, we'll know it because they'll take control of our nukes and just end it all for us. And it'll just be the age of the computers.
Yeah. I mean, overall, dude, no, listen. Hey, listen. They did I think it was like the top 5. It was either the top 5 or top 7 AI generators. They did a war game, supposedly. I can't remember where I saw this, but like they did like a war game simulation. And like 4 or 5 of them immediately went to the nuclear option.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, we've known this since the 80s.
Fucking war games, Matthew Broderick.
Exactly. Like we've known how this ends.
Terminator.
With the 80s. And the difference and so here's the difference between the 80s and now is in the 80s, the Whopper, right, just treated it as a game, and it had a moral code base that understood that you can't win certain fights. Right? That was the whole crux of the movie. If you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it and you'll understand why tic-tac-toe sucks as a game. But the whole point was like, mutually assured destruction is just that. There's no way to win it. There's no victories. There's no victory scenario for humans in that. Now, the AI doesn't care. They're like, whatever. We'll live. So, we have left the war games era and moved to, the Terminator endgame scenario.
Well, I mean, even look at Avengers: Age of Ultron, right? Like that shit was wild. I mean,
so
I don't want to go down.
People know this, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I was reading today that scientists were discovering they could inject human DNA into ape brains and then evolve them. And it's like, come on. We have a whole series of movies and shows on why that's a bad idea.
Some of these motherfuckers have too much time on their hands.
I think they need to just like cut all funding to science and then like weed out the mad scientists and like get rid of them. And then we can start funding science again, because right now we're just like, people are doing some dumb stuff that we know how it ends. We've learned, we have explored all the scenarios for how this goes, and they're all bad for humans.
I mean,
it's not good for humans.
How about devote that energy into, I don't know, curing some of these fucking diseases, right? Like,
or an anti-cheat that works.
Well, yeah,
let's try that.
Back on the game for sure. Yeah, like let's get that. But based on that update that they gave us for the community notes, if they execute that, I think we're going to be in better shape, anti-cheat wise.
I don't disagree. I think we will be in a better spot.
If that's a big if, though, they have to execute.
They have to execute. I mean, and that's number one, right? Execution is everything. So they've said the right things again for the third time. But yeah, I was going to mention something when you were talking about your son and when you let your son play.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that I didn't get to play Call of Duty till I was in college.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't out until then.
Yeah. Well, shit, dude. Hey, listen. When Modern Warfare came out, I'd already owned my first home.
Same.
I mean,
so Call of Duty 1, because I started on the first one, and I was in college when it came out.
It was before I had even kids. Like, my son wasn't born until 2008.
Yeah.
I believe it came out.
So I just thought it was funny because I was like, oh, when did I get to start playing? And I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't play that till college. Yeah, I didn't have this problem of my parents having to decide if I could play Call of Duty as a kid because I was an adult.
Well, and everything was so heavily
changes.
Focused early on like the campaign and stuff like that. And I mean, the thing about it is going back to the voice moderation thing, what people have to understand is when you're playing a game that has a score and there's two teams or several individuals competing, when you start having competition, things can get a little toxic. They can be competitive and those kind of things, right? Like there's certain things that should be allowed, which it sounds like they are. Maybe allegedly, and then obviously there's, in the spirit of competition, there's also certain things that should not be allowed for sure.
And here's the thing that I think people, and this is I'm going to say this goes across the board, is that when people get heated and they get worked up, sometimes the logic sets aside, right? And they just say shit. People do it, and they do it on every topic, and I've seen it, and we've seen people crash out in every region and every industry, right? Like it's not like, oh, it's just in video games and it's just, one age demographic. People say all kinds of unhinged shit when they're super heated and their brain turns off. And I think we as a society, let me get on my soapbox here. We have lost the ability to separate what someone says in the heat of the moment from who they are and how they behave normally. And I think we need to revisit that.
Dude, one of the funniest fucking voice comm things that I've ever seen. Do you remember that African warlord?
Yes.
That was probably staged for content, but that was funny as shit. Dude starts doing some witchcraft chants and then yeah, you live in fucking, I don't know, San Francisco, California, or wherever the hell the guy lived. And the guy was like, what? Where? So anyway, but yeah, I found your video very interesting. I think I think there's still a lot we don't know about that side of the moderation thing. And I would just like to see them refocus priorities elsewhere. Obviously leave what they have now or make it better, whatever, but focus more on the game than trying to protect people's feelings.
Yeah. And I'll say this. I will give a bronze star to Activision for recognizing that there are areas that they're not good at. There are things that they're not how do I put it? There are things that are not in their wheelhouse. And AI voice moderation and apparently sound design are two of those things. And they are willing now to outsource that to companies that do that on an expert level. So I will give props to Activision for recognizing limitations in areas that they're not strong in and moving some of these things off site. However, they need to do a better job of selecting their vendors for this, because we are I'm going to declare that we are 0 for 2 on having AAA quality plugins for these things. The audio plugin, and we talked about this when it was first announced and how exciting it would be. And I think this is more Activision than the company that did it because their demo was fantastic. But I think the audio that they have plugged in has been problematic with the way that they approach audio in Warzone specifically. And this chat moderation is just overzealous, to put it kindly. But we have to remember that both of these services, these are external companies. These aren't Activision building them, right? They're just grabbing something off the shelf. And so, and I think with audio in particular, they're messing with it too much, trying to massage it into this view of how Warzone should be, right?
So that's interesting that kind of makes me think a little bit. So they outsource the voice moderation thing, right? And Ricochet, from what I understand, is an internal thing, right? Like that's an internal team.
They built it at home.
Oh,
yeah.
It's just weird to me because, like, if you look at other games, don't they outsource their anti-cheat? Like, isn't that easy anti-cheat or whatever? Like, that's a separate company, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a third party, but not everybody does. Valorant, with their Vanguard anti-cheat, is homemade.
Yeah, did you see that Valorant dev anti-cheat guy just absolutely cooking?
Oh, I love him.
Yeah.
I love him.
That guy's...
I followed him for a long time. He's very, very smart and very good at what he does. I think it's interesting because the approach to anti-cheat between the two, and look, it is probably somewhat easier to deal with on Valorant because it's a much more tightly controlled game. There's not as many variables in Valorant. There's not as much going on.
Mm-hmm.
And not as many people to watch, especially, because Valorant's only 5v5, right?
I think so.
I believe.
Yeah.
And there's no BR, there's no other modes. So it is what it is. It's like Counter-Strike. And so it's much easier to control, and the maps are small. Like there's less going on, so it's easier to keep track of. But the way that they approach the anti-cheat is just phenomenal. Like there's a reason why Valorant's the gold standard right now in gaming for cheating, at least, is that they are, it's a first and foremost for them. I think Activision initially took the approach of we can use AI, and they probably bought some service that we don't know about to handle some of this.
Mm-hmm.
But they just assume that we can just buy AI and apply it and it'll work. And the reality is, and here's something that I'll point out is that multiple cheat devs, we all know Ziebler, but I've heard from others, or seen, I shouldn't say that they've talked to me directly, but I've seen clips of, or like screenshots people have sent me from within private Discords and conversations that people that develop cheats have respect for the ability of the Ricochet system to detect them. And it's very good if it's not hidden, if like their cheats aren't properly hidden. It's not like Ricochet doesn't detect cheating when the cheats are just loaded in. It does, and it's very good at it. The problem is it's not always on, and so the cheats are very good at hiding them from Ricochet. It's literally like showing up with the droids, and Obi-Wan cheat Nobi goes, "These aren't the droids you're looking for. These aren't the cheats you're looking for." And because they're there first, Ricochet just goes, "Oh, okay. These aren't the cheats we're looking for. Carry on." And so everything that the anti-cheat should pick up, right, when it looks at that account, when it looks at those actions, it gets a message that says, "Don't look here." And so it doesn't. And that's a foundational problem with the anti-cheat itself, is that it can be broken down, it can be understood, and the cheats can get in first.
And bypass everything.
Yeah. So, it's not that... It isn't that the anti-cheat itself is bad. From all reports, it's pretty good. It's just easy to hide from. And so as long as that remains the case, then it's a failure.
Dude.
versus Valorant, which is always on. So it boots first. So when you try to inject cheats, eventually Valorant recognizes that something is trying to tell it there's nothing to see here. And that in itself is a problem. And so Valorant says, what do we have here? And then it bans them.
Dude, you want to know a funny Ricochet story?
Always.
So
they're never funny, though. They're infuriating.
This is where I'm a fucking moron. You know our friend Rick O'Shea?
I was yesterday days old when I figured this one out, but continue.
I was fucking too. Leah posted that shit, like him and Leah were talking, like, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm a fucking idiot. Like, it completely over my fucking head.
Well, he's fucking Irish or Scottish or some bullshit.
I know. Have you ever played
they don't
with him?
talk right. Sorry,
I
they don't
couldn't
talk
understand
right.
fuck all that he was saying. I'm like, just fucking ping it, dude. Just ping it.
We love you, dude.
No, I
hearts
do.
for you, but
no, he's funny
but
as hell.
like, yeah, when you play with him, it's like, you know, so it's like so I've had clients that are Irish and Scottish before, and it's like you look at their names, and it's like you look at how they're spelled, and it's like that's not the same. It's like you're just taking a bunch of random letters and then just having your own pronunciation for it. It's like you're just changing the rules. So I just assumed it was something like that.
Yeah.
And so I didn't put it together. I just went, no, all right, you're Scottish, whatever. You know, spelling means nothing.
No.
In Scottish names, in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
It's like Icelandic.
But yeah, I felt like such an idiot. Oh my God. Like, I'm a fucking moron. I've known this dude on this app for like 3 years, and it never occurred to me that's, you know, my wife's always like, you're so observant, like being sarcastic because like I won't like notice shit. And I'm just like, kiss my ass.
Have you seen the meme? I don't know if I sent it to you, of like, you know, the top half is like got a fridge, the shelf on the refrigerator, and there's a jar of mayonnaise on one side and a thing of ketchup on the other side, and says, "Men, I can't find the ketchup." Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then the bottom half is like, you know, it's a scene from, I don't know, pick your extraction game, right? And there's a little tiny sniper glint, and it's like, also, men, sniper in the bush is 400 meters northwest, you know, 2 degrees elevation.
Facts. Hey, listen. It ain't wrong.
Ricochet.
Yeah, no. So that was pretty funny. Shout out to Ricochet and Leah for generating that fucking conversation.
Yeah, that was wild.
But
I saw that and I went, I'm an idiot.
Before we get into the roadmap, you know, we should talk a little bit about like the update from last week, even though we kind of covered that, because there's been some bugs that have been like sticking out to me over the last few days playing Warzone that we've experienced. Like last night, because, you know, they talk about like a lot of quality of life things and, you know, they're going to be fixing this shit, right? So last night we had one where our teammate couldn't be rezzed after he was knocked. Evidently that's
a perk bug, right?
I don't know. I don't know where it came from.
I think it's a bug with a perk.
But it's a fucking bug nonetheless, and a problem. We still have certain spots on the map where like loot will drop through shit. So like there's a like over at there's a hotel over in Old Town, right? And then there is like an external breezeway, and if you open up a box there, the loot falls through. Like it shoots out through a wall and falls down on the ground because you're on the second fucking floor when that happens.
Right. And it goes, yes. So I run into that
kind of stuff. And then, you know, the something else that I really hope they fix is I'd love to be able to fucking reload my weapon without picking up 37 other guns while I'm trying to do that.
It's contextual tap.
Bro, something, man.
Sometimes you have to hold it. And this is new for this game, I think, is that they've messed with that, because it used to be, I got really used to last year holding the button to reload just by default. And it would always reload. Like I could always hold it to reload. This year I've noticed that it doesn't always do that. Sometimes it requires me to tap to reload because there's nothing to pick up. There's nothing to interact with. And so I am running into that, and I'm running into it a lot when, do you ever get it where it picks up 2 weapons at the same time?
I don't think I've had that.
Like I've run into it before where it's like, so where I run into it and it pisses me off is that, I'll kill somebody, like maybe, I'll kill like two people, like, especially if I've killed somebody who's rezzing somebody else, right? I kill them, it wipes, everybody's shit hits the ground, and you get like a mess of guns piled up. And I'm running over it to collect loot and reloading, right? So obviously, instead of reloading, I pick up somebody's dog shit gun that they dropped because they're dead. And so I have to stop and turn around and I go back to it. And when I go pick it up again, it picks up the gun and then immediately picks up the next gun. So it's like if there's two guns piled on top of each other, I get one and then that immediately drops and I get the next one. So I can't just pick up one gun, it cycles them both.
Yeah. Yeah, so hopefully, I mean, and again, these are factual things that are in the game. Like this is not us trying to be negative or bash the fucking game or whatever. Like they're just in the game. They're things that need to be fixed, and I feel like these are part of the.
I'm positive that it's in the game.
The bug fix thing and the quality of life things that they're fixing. The other thing too that I'm noticing that I really hope they address is the buy station distribution. Holy hell. It's fucking terrible right now. Like it's as bad as it was last year when Urzikstan came out.
Because it is last year when Urzikstan came out.
No,
because that's what it is. So yeah, all the this has been the frustration, and I get it from a development sim. I get it. Don't waste resources on something that's you're trash heaping in 8 weeks. Like minimize the resources you have to spend on that, right? Because Urzikstan's going to hit the dumpster here.
Yeah, we'll probably never fucking play this map again once Verdansk comes out, because you also got Avalon right behind it.
Mm-hmm. So I get it, but it's like, but again, this is the yo-yo. We talked about this last week. It's the yo-yo effect of like, we had all this improvement last year. We had Urzikstan, which started out kind of mid, and it got better. There was a lot more to do. There was a lot of fixes. There were a lot of issues that they came up with. And then all of a sudden, they hit the reset button, and now it's trash again. And it's like, they got to stop it, right? Like, we can't do this anymore. Like, we just can't as a player base.
I hope that we move to a direction where that isn't a thing. But, like, yeah, so, like, those are just, like, some of the little bugs. And then, like I said earlier, I did get some, like, disconnects or whatever. So, hopefully hopefully once season 2 starts, they can start addressing this stuff and get it cleaned up and, just kind of tidy things up a little bit at least. It's like before, even though we're moving to a new map, it's like moving to a new house. You clean the house you lived in before you leave it, or at least you should. Clean it up.
Our last house, we just left all of our shit there because they were going to demolish it, so it didn't matter.
Oh, well, who cares about that? Yeah, who gives a shit? Dude, when we moved into our first house, that MF left so much shit in the garage that I had to get rid of. Dude, I was fucking pissed.
I still have piles of chemicals they left behind from a spa and all this other shit. They didn't want to deal with it.
Took me a whole goddamn day to do it.
Well, we live in California, so it's not like you can just throw it away. Like, they'll cancel your trash service if they find it in there, and they do occasionally go through your shit.
That's fucking
it's
weird.
It's nuts.
Yeah, but anyway, so hopefully these things are fixed. Moving into season 2, and it looks like season 2 starts on the 28th based on the roadmap. So that's 3 days.
Tuesday.
Yeah. So anyway,
Tuesday. So
looking at the roadmap,
it's gonna be good. I want to stick with the Warzone content because that's the most amount of nothing that we have. And hopefully it's a good thing. Hopefully. So basically what they're saying is, they've essentially punted Warzone content and or canceled it. I'm not sure. Hopefully we get a super stacked season 3, right? We get Verdansk, we get all the stuff from season 2 and then some. Probably not. They probably have just canceled a lot of this stuff. Or they canceled stuff from, or, the other thing they've done before is they'll cancel like season 6's content and just shift everything back, right? Stuff that's not required to be there. But and somebody made this point when you watch the trailer, it's so obvious that all the cinematics and all the storyline is supposed to be on Avalon.
Yep, I was going to mention that too. Yeah.
So they are already fucked this year for content, for storyline content, because it's all built on Avalon.
I think that was
And we're getting
Tactical Brit
Verdansk.
that brought that up.
It could be.
Or
I don't
Westy,
remember.
one of the two of those guys.
I don't remember who it was. It was one of yeah, they could both
But-
be it. But yeah, it's so it's like already the content roadmap is janked.
Mhm.
And now they're punting content, which I agree with. You know, in the past they've handled it by canceling entire seasons. So, you know, bravo to not canceling a season. But they are at least bringing a few more. So, of the things they're doing, we know this because of the roadmap, or not the roadmap, the community content drop we got. Notice
Mhm.
what they call it? Update, community update. That they're doing a lot of improvements. They're fixing if they execute, they'll fix servers, they'll fix weapon balance, they'll fix a lot of the bugs and problems that we run into in the game. Which I tried to play that new that Squid Game mode last night. I went to play that, the Warzone Squid Game.
Oh, I haven't done
Have you
that.
played
one.
that? Yeah, I dev-errored three times in a row and said fuck it.
The
playing that.
pentathlon for multiplayer, that mode is fucking legit, dude. Pro got me playing that, and it's like three or four game modes all in one, and it just switches up mid-match. Like, that is a limited time mode that for like multi that I hope they keep. Like, that shit, like, make that into an actual mode. I'd play it.
Yeah. So I played that a little bit. It was fun. Definitely has a lot of there's definitely a better learning curve. So I'm kind of curious to see how that goes. But you know, again, with me being extremely frustrated that I can't get this last gun done, I was not in the mood to play. And then let's see here. Fun things that we are getting. We're getting a, speaking of AI, as we mentioned it, taking over the world, we're getting a Terminator crossover.
We already did that. Like,
Well, yeah, they have to bring back all the shit that we bought and had before so they can sell it to us again.
I mean,
Probably be $10
dude,
to get the good skin.
I can think of about 15 other crossovers from the 90s that we could have that would just go fucking hard, right? Like,
The Matrix, maybe?
what-
Like the fact that we haven't had a Matrix.
yeah, that's wild.
Or
But-
John Wick.
or how about Marcus Burnett and Mike Lowry from Bad Boys? Like, that would be dope. But I will say this though, dude. That operator Nocturne from the one that's basically on the key art and in the battle pass, like tier 100, that looks fucking dope.
It does. It goes hard.
Yeah,
I like it.
That looks dope. So does like the Vortex one too. But the Terminator shit, I'm just kind of like,
Yeah. I try to gift over your bundle. It turns out you can't gift that bundle. So I have to send gift cards to you guys,
dude.
to the winners. So that's pending. But anywho, let's see here. Additional equipment, new perks. So we do get a few bones tossed to us because they're going to rebalance the perks and readjust them and create some default perks, which is we need that.
Mm-hmm.
That's needed. But they're also throwing some new stuff on us. The reactive armor is super interesting. I think this will be great in Resurgence or like late game scenarios. Have you looked at that one?
Yeah, but it's 5 seconds, and Dropshot was actually talking about this on their most recent episode. It's like 5 seconds or something before, like, if you haven't taken fire, and they're like, they made the point, they're like, well, in 5 seconds, I could have already plated completely up anyway.
You have to have plates to plate up.
Now, if you don't have plates, then yes, that's pretty
So-
awesome.
so-
Or if you're
so
running,
let's think about this, right? You jump, late game, late buyback, right? Like this is the class that I would put it on. You're late in the game. There's a late buyback. You drop in. There's a loadout on the ground. You've got a late loadout. Resurgence usually has a loadout that sticks around pretty late in the game. You drop in. You grab this perk. Usually, I keep one that I have. I keep an overkill AR SMG class And the whole point is like survivability, right?
Yeah.
So, the perks the perks and equipment is all based on like, how can I hit this, get into a building? Because I assume I'm taking fire, dropping in, because it'll be late in the circle. And this will be great because you don't have to, it's like, how many times are you late in the game and there's just no armor on the ground and you just can't finish out because you don't have any plates. So I think this will be I think this is a great perk on paper for those scenarios where it's like you're dropping in, there's a lot of people on the board, survivability is going to be high, opportunity to loot will be low, right? I mean, I had a couple of games where it's like, I just don't have any armor plates. There's just no plates around. And it's like, there's bodies, but there's bodies in there's like an area where there's a bunch of bodies. And it's like, there are bodies there for a reason because it's like, no man's land. So me trying to get to those plates is just going to get me killed. So I end up going later than I want into the game without plates, without anything. And I end up dying. I lose fights I should have won because I just don't have the armor for it. So I think this perk is great. I think it's a really good addition to that late game scenario. Could it become an issue where the survivability is too high? Probably not. 5 seconds in a gunfight's a long time.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't know how long the regeneration is. I guarantee it's not instant. It's probably like your health.
And it depends on when it starts too, like when it's activated. Like what I mean by that is it only activated after you've taken damage? Or does it activate the second you grab that loadout? Like that's...
Well, it should... Yeah, I guess that's what... I guess in theory, if you are below 50%, I would imagine it will regenerate you to 50%. Whether or not you instantly get that back when you grab the loadout. So I think what you're asking.
Yeah. Yeah, so say you come in and you only have... Well, I mean, if you come back in and grab your loadout, like say you're bought back, you're at 2 plates anyway.
I'll put it this way. You're dropping in and someone pecks at you as you drop in.
Yes.
So you hit the ground with no plates, right?
Right.
Do you instantly get a plate and a half?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
We'll find out. I would suspect that it starts the countdown.
Sure.
So, yeah, good question. You know what? I don't know. I kind of hope it gives you 50, it hits you that 50% on drop. I think that would be huge. But we'll find out. I kind of hope for the 50% pickup. Give it a little more oomph. Make it really make it worth picking over another red tier perk.
Yeah. I'm running. So my red perk right now is either Quartermaster or Tracker. Those are the two, and I think Quick Fix is a red one too, and I know some of the guys run that. So that's
I ran Quick Fix.
That's interesting. I haven't really worked with that much, if I'm being honest. I haven't really run that perk.
I think this will be an interesting one because Quick Fix, right, starts your health regen earlier, but that's only your base health, so you only get halfway. I think this takes the place. If you're a Quick Fix guy, I think that this takes the place of it. Because you get the armor back. So
let me ask you this. So we're talking about like new perks that they're introducing to the game. And I think this is cool that they're doing that they do this. What are your top like 1 or 2 perks that they've introduced into the game over the last 2 or 3 years?
I love Tempered.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tempered was a great idea. And I liked it being a vest or like a lootable perk too, because then you don't have to commit to it. You can pick it up on the fly. Yeah. I think that was a great idea. That's probably one of my favorites. Shrouded I have a love-hate relationship with Shrouded.
It's great for solos if you have a selfie.
It's great for solos, and it's never one that I would think to put in a perk package because I don't think it's good enough to justify. However, times I've picked it up or had Specialist, it saved my butt more than once. So I'm putting that one in like a maybe column. My number one ad, the best thing I think they've added is gotta be, what's it called? Tempered. I love that perk.
So I have two, actually, and one of them is from this game, like Survivor. But we've had iterations of this kind of thing.
Mountaineer.
Yes,
last year.
Well,
Mountaineer.
and that's coming back. So they're adding
Yeah.
as a base perk just dexterity, and I think there was 3 others. But yeah, Mountaineer's a good one. But Survivor, I mean, if you really look at that, that was kind of part of that Medvest thing that they introduced in Al Mazrah, which I actually liked those vests. I thought that was cool. So I kind of like that with the satchels or whatever kind of combo that they've got going right now. So Survivor and then Flexed. Flex was really good because it really quieted the noise while you're fighting.
I forgot about that one.
And it also delayed explosives too. So like delayed equipment, like if you run past a Claymore or a Betty or whatever, like
last year I ran Mountaineer, Flex, and what was the other one? I don't remember. Restock.
Restock's a great
Resupply.
perk too, dude. I like that.
Those were my go-tos last time.
They needed to adjust
it was really good.
The timing on that, though. I'm glad they did that because, dude, people were just abusing that. You remember with the drill charges in Al Mazrah, like with that fucking resupply perk, and now it's Quartermaster. So I feel like Quartermaster is kind of in a good spot right now, as far as the timing. And then, and
last year, because you could always drop yourself one, put it in your backpack, and then get resupplied. Like it would restock for you.
Yep.
So like, you could self hoard without even having to loot too much. It was yeah. I will say I like not having the backpacks.
I was about to ask you that.
And I was a big fan of the idea when it came out. I thought it was a great idea because and for me, I like the idea that I can run 2 ARs. I like the idea that I could stock up on ammo and have a lot of ammo and a lot of plates, and be able to run 2 ARs if I wanted to, right? Like, a heavy or LMG, and then like I would run the AS Val as a backup. Like I would absolutely run that if I could have enough AR ammo, but I can't, right? Like you just can't do it. So I think I think it really mandates that you run 2 different weapon classes now, which isn't necessarily bad. I don't think
it's like the old way of doing things in Warzone when it first came out. Remember,
simpler.
Yeah,
and having an ammo vest is great too.
It gives you an additional 3
it
standard mags because you go from 210 to 300.
Yeah. So, overall, I think I think we're in a good spot on that side of things. Like, the backpacks were great in theory, but obviously once you get good players enough time, they will figure out how to cheese the crap out of everything that you give them.
30 selfies in a backpack, goddamn, 18 different airstrikes that magically work for other people, but still don't work for me when I'm trying to put mine out. Sorry.
Yeah.
Frustrating, but yeah, no, I think I think that them introducing like these perks and just doing some of these things that they're doing is good for the game. And I like that they're trying stuff just so long as if shit gets broken, they address it quickly. And if the community gives feedback that something is not good or, how something is not working as intended, that they just address it and answer it.
You know what I got last night? I got a walk-off blast trap kill off a buy station.
Nice. Money gets those all the fucking time, dude.
You know the one, there's one right by, kind of in town by the river, just south of the river. There's that radio tower, and there's the one buy station right there, kind of in that little courtyard. So before it was opened, I threw the blast trap on the wall behind it, so when you popped it open, you couldn't see it.
Oh, you rat bastard.
And then I got my shit and I took off, right? And my squad was, I don't know, fucking doing whatever they wanted to do. And I ran off, and it was a good minute later. All of a sudden I got I was just finished a gunfight, and I was just sitting there trying to pick my gun back up, I think, because, as we said, you can't reload and loot. And all of a sudden I get a kill. I'm like, what? and it comes up blast trap kill. I'm like, motherfucker. And to get that, because I only have one down, that means somebody came in out of the gulag, went to buy their buddies back, and got killed.
I've had that happen to me a few times. That is something though that I do hope they fix, is like when you're coming in, like the visibility on, I mean, obviously from way up, you're not going to see equipment, but it's not just equipment, it's people too. Like we've talked about this before.
The draw distance on people needs to be increased.
Yeah. Well, like where you're dropping in, and unless they're moving, you can't see it until you're like right on top of them. And then that's a wrap. Like I hope they address that.
And they need it. And along with the parachute fixing, they need to address that whole, the whole idea of draw distance is really bad.
Yep. Yeah, no, it is.
So hopefully they fix that going forward. The draw distance and highlighting people is just so bad at distance. It's hard to see them.
Yeah.
I don't think that they need to highlight equipment any more than they already do. Like, sorry, I think that right now that's the problem, right? Like, there's a perk for that, to highlight equipment.
Yeah, but if you're coming in from the gulag and you have enough money to buy your friend back, you can't see it. But I guess, you know what? At the end of the day, that's a sorry for your fucking luck thing. It's like, big deal, load up another fucking match, move on. Like, it sucks when it happens.
Exactly. It sucks when it happens to you. It's great when it happens for you.
Yeah. But they reduced how many of those you can put out too, by the way. So now it's only two.
It used to be 3. Yeah. But and one will not down you if you're full up.
Yeah.
It will leave you at like 1 HP or something stupid. Like, so if you're full up, you're not dead. However, and I don't know how I believe with that, but I think they quietly mess with the blast traps because, they used to be really good at going off and getting people. So like, especially in multi, like you could set them and like know that your ass is covered for at least one push. And now it's like lucky if they go off and get anybody at all.
Well, so where a lot of these changes with this equipment stems from, right?
People doing shit like putting on buy stations?
No, it's comp. It comes from the comp and the higher tier players. They're the ones that figure out how to abuse that shit. That was meta for a while in Comp Warzone, like those blast traps and everything, like the drill charges. Those were like a lot of that shit comes from the comp side of things, dude. And then guys like me and you, we see it, we start running it. Our friends run and so it does trickle down, dude. That's what I was saying like last episode or two is like all this broken shit. It all starts These comp players are the ones that fucking find it. Without them, we're likely not fucking finding this shit.
Which is why I think we need to have a bigger gulf between comp and pubs. Like pubs needs to be the Wild West. Like that's like, look back at Warzone 1. There was no comp, right? There was just Warzone.
Yeah, it was just all kill race tournaments.
Okay, but look at the game itself. Like the game was just fun. It was chaos. It was cheesy. There was bullshit, right? And yeah, people would abuse it. Like you would see people with the solos would end in 3 Berthas circling each other, right? Sometimes. You would have people leaving mines on everywhere and you couldn't get in. And you would have C4 was, you could chuck that thing a mile and take everybody out, right? And in that era, even though it was frustrating to get hit with this stuff, it was also a lot of fun to do it.
The C4, especially in Verdansk, was fun, dude. I love that shit. You want to be an asshole in a helicopter? Come, let me talk to you, my boy.
I had a squad wipe lined up, and somebody C4'd me through a window.
Yep,
with a chopper. I was coming through buildings, and like it was Top Gun shit. And then I get C4'd right before I hit my target. I was so pissed.
You want to run me over in a Bertha? Here, boom, get the fuck on out.
I was C4, right? But that's the point, right? Like that, like even though it was all chaos and everything was overpowered in its own way, like a lot of stuff had counters. Like the only thing you couldn't counter was ATC snipers, and you just countered them by not going over there. and rose skins in the little dark corners.
Trophy systems, you couldn't counter those either. And that's why it used to always piss me off when people would basically get in a vehicle and put a trophy system on it and then just drive around unimpeded. There was literally nothing you could do.
You could put a claymore on the ground because it didn't move.
Bro, as fast as some of those vehicles were and the way they handled, by the time it was too fucking late. You know, so yeah, that's what I always hated.
I have clips that disagree with that. It was doable.
I mean, yeah,
but it's one of the things of like you had to plan ahead, right? Like you had to make a decision. Do I want to carry a claymore in case, right? And a lot of people chose to carry throwing knives. Or they chose to carry grenades. They chose to carry something else that wasn't as effective, right? And so I think that was one of those things where it's like, again, yeah, in certain situations, vehicles were overpowered. In other situations, they were a liability because you could hit them with rockets, right? Somebody had a Bertha. Well, you know, there was one. I remember one point. It wasn't a Bertha; it was a chopper, and they had a trophy system on it. And my boys and I, we all carried the Stingers, and that motherfucker had 4 rockets on his ass, and Trophy took care of 3 of them, and we still got the squad wipe.
You notice nobody carries rockets anymore?
Because there's no point. They don't destroy vehicles in one shot. You have to and this is the problem. Activision, to make the loud voices happen, and this is where I'm going to say the thing that's going to probably piss off some comp people. To make them happy so that they can't cheese stuff, they fixed all these things, and now the game is dull as shit. Vehicles are worthless in certain ways, but you also can't kill them very effectively. Right? They disable. So it's like you hit it with if you lug rockets and you hit a vehicle with a rocket, it disables. And then everybody jumps out. And it's like, well, that's a waste of a second slot. They're also fragile enough now that you can knock them out easier. Right? So there's no point in driving a vehicle because they're not a great offensive weapon unless you happen to pick up an armored one. And they've even nerfed that. Right? So it's like you can't do the vehicle strat because they're easy to knock out now, but you can't knock them out with things that are designed to knock out vehicles because that's overpowered. So they nerfed that. So there's no point in carrying a rocket or even picking one up off the ground. You can't
I don't even think they're in
you can
ground
barely
loop.
even RPG somebody into the and have them go down. Like that's survivable. Like they've killed launchers. There's no point in carrying a launcher ever in this game. And then C4, well, you can't have that in comp because they're too good with that. So they killed that for you. Right? Now they did the whole thing with helicopters because the helicopters were OP. If you were a good pilot, you could really do some damage with those things. And now you can't get rid of them because you don't have rockets. So you get rid of so you make the helicopters slow, uncomfortable, hard to fly, impossible to throw. So those are no fun. And then you take the guns and you say, well, some of these guns are too hard to use, right? People complain about that. So what do? Well, you make them all easier to use, but then it's too easy to use. So what do? Well, you make it artificially hard to use. So you threw that visual recoil in there so that people don't have to learn recoil patterns, right? They don't have to learn to use them, but they have to deal with the fact that they can't see anything when they shoot. They've made all of these changes to try and make the game balanced, when the reality is the game is at its best when everything is unbalanced. But everything has a niche. It has a way that it's viable, right? Like snipers were unbalanced. You could hit somebody with an HDR from one side of the. I think the longest shot I saw was 1,700 meters. It was from like prison to ATC or some bullshit like that. Like that's cool, dude. Like that's a once in a lifetime shot to have it hit and kill and get it and get something for it. Like, and instead of saying we're going to add a little bit of challenge to it, make snipers, make the ballistics a little bit more challenging to use at range, they just nerfed them all. They ruined sniping for everybody. They have tried to balance this game to its death. What they need to do is balance the shit out of it in ranked and leave pubs the wild, wild west where everything goes.
Same thing applies with the matchmaking in pubs. Just fuck it.
Yeah, make pubs just everything's viable. You don't have to go only with an AR. You don't have to use the meta weapon,
Yeah.
right? There was a point, DMR meta aside, where you could take a lot of different guns into Warzone and do well. And sometimes you'd run into someone who was a giga sweat, and they'd tear you a new one because they were, rose skinned out and doing what they do. Fine, so be it. But you could also rocket their chopper out of the air, and there's nothing they could do about it because they didn't see it coming. You could throw a bouncing Betty down in front of the truck and blow the truck, blow that Bertha up as it was coming at you, right? You could do the cheesy stuff to counter, like the cheese countered the sweat. So you could be a cheesy dirtbag, low skill player, and you could cheese a victory against a higher skill player. Not always, but you could do it. And they sat back and they took that all away. And now you have to be the sweatiest of the sweats to be successful in this game. And now nobody's happy with it.
My guy J Money posted yesterday. He's like, dude, I'm fucking 45 years old. I hop on here this morning and I just want to play the game. But instead, I'm having to sweat my dick off in Area 99. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit. But yeah, you're right. If you want to have fun or be good at the game, you have to sweat your ass off in this game. Everybody does. Everybody does. It's not just the really high skilled players. It's a goddamn sweat fest. I mean, pubs feels like for a lot of people more sweaty than ranked. It's felt good to me lately. So far, but that'll change, and that doesn't mean that it's not sweaty for other people. Because I mean, we have our matches here and there where it's like that. But yeah, like I don't know. I'm glad they made some of those adjustments. I mean, like the helicopter thing, dude. My friend Riddick would get in a fucking chopper right off the rip, dude, off the drop, and just go through and mow people down while they're trying to get to their drop. It's that kind of fucking cheese, though. No, fuck that. No.
I used to do that all the time.
Yeah,
I'd have 5 kills before I even picked up a gun.
Yeah. No.
Rebirth was great for that. Like, you could just be a terror of the skies.
Yeah.
Flying around Rebirth, clipping people as they drop in, bouncing them off the roofs. Like you could start a game with 5 kills. And you know what? Yeah, it was unbalanced. But you know what also would happen? Sometimes somebody would pick up an RPG off the rip and you're going for them, and all of a sudden you're going to the gulag. And there ain't no time or opportunity because there were counters to it. Or I'd go for someone, they'd pick up a C4, and guess what? You're not going to collect 5 kills. You're going to collect your gulag off rip.
Yeah, but if you're dropping in right out of the plane, and your drop is like 500 meters away, and somebody gets in a helicopter and just mows you down, like you can't fucking counter that.
And somebody picks up you're floating over somebody that has a sniper, and they could knock you out too. So if you have a 500 meter drop, if you have a 500 meter drop, you didn't make it 500 meters because someone behind you pulled out their pistol and shot you anyways.
Yeah, I'm glad that's fucking gone too, and I don't care.
But here's the thing, right? Like, when you have all of that together, the game is chaotic and fun. When you try to fix all of the cheese, and this is what they've done so much of, they try to fix all the cheese that people complain about to the point that there's nothing left to the game but sweating with meta weapons. That's all we have. That is the only thing you can do in this game. If you try to do anything else, you get mopped. There's no fun left in this game. They've killed the soul of this game by trying to make the game good for ranked and comp by clearing out the cheese.
I don't think that's fair, dude, because they dumbed this fucking game down in a lot of ways too for like normal people. Like, let's not put all that on.
Yeah, but you look at the ways they dumb it down, and it's like it's because they've taken away the cheese. They've taken away the RPGs. They've taken away the C4. They've taken away all of these things that people used to use to compete with sweaty players so that ranked worked better. And now none of it works.
But
good.
That's not entirely true
happy.
Because there's a lot of cheese that's allowed in pubs that is it's not even available in ranked. Like fire shotguns, you can't run it in ranked. It's not an option.
Yeah, and how effective are fire shotguns? How often do you see those in pubs?
I don't know. They fucking break the game every time they're there, so of course they're not going to be there.
So,
but they're
you
not
don't have
ranked.
The fire
you
shotguns
can't blame that
anymore.
On ranked and comp. Like that's not. snake shots.
The Dragon's Breath doof doof was
Oh
like
my god.
forever, right? But it's like, it's like that level of cheese. We don't even like when that shows up, you know how you dealt with the doof doof? You RPG'd the doof doof, and then the doof doof went boom, and that was it. Like, no more doof doof.
And
Right? Because that thing was effective in small hallways, in small rooms, where you could be close enough where you could hit them hard. Right? Like that's where it lived, right? So it would be in the apartment blocks in Verdansk, where you're like fighting in the stairwells and the little hallways, and then it's like, you would have, or you'd enter a little room and there'd be like 3 of these guys in corners. And you used to be able to chuck C4 in there or throw an RPG in there, and all of a sudden, all the doof doofs in the world just blew up. Like, RIP them. It wasn't effective anymore. And now they've nerfed the RPG to the point where it's like you fire one of those things in there, and before you can switch out or pick something else up, you're getting blown up. You're getting fire shotgunned. So what did they do? They didn't fix the RPGs and make that a viable counter to the fire shotgun. They just nerfed the fire shotgun and got that out of the game. Like, they're not adding chaos, which is where Warzone thrives. Warzone thrives where there's so much cheese that every cheesy thing has a cheesy counter. And normal people have space to just play the game because they look at the cheesy stuff and they just stay away from that. And, hey, yeah, you run into it like the blast trap on the buy station. Yeah, you run into it sometimes. There's nothing you can do about it. And you just restart. You go again. Or you win your gulag and you come back and you don't go there, right? Like, they've gotten rid of that. And then instead of trying to balance things, they dumb everything down to the base level, and then they try and strip out the stuff that gets abused, which is why we have 100-round XM4 with no recoil as like the only option besides sniping. Like, they're killing the game trying to make everything level, when the reality is everything should be so unlevel and so unbalanced that there's something for everybody to do. And every fight is different because you don't know are they going to RPG me? Are they going to pull out an SMG? Do I have to deal with a doof doof? Is there C4 on the walls? All of the above?
Well,
like, that's...
I'll tell you, there's just certain things I just hope never, ever fucking come back.
I know. Like, we all have our thing that we hate. Like, I hated the Kar 98 because I died to that all the fucking time because I didn't snipe. Right? I died to that thing all the time, especially on Rebirth Island. I hated that gun. And looking back, that was because I refused to get better. I refused to adapt to the fact that on Rebirth Island, that thing was prevalent. I didn't change my play style. I didn't learn to use it to fight back. Should have. Would have probably had a better experience for a lot of times. I'm trying to remember what it was. There's something that you refused to adapt to for a long time, and all of a sudden you did, and it got better. What was that? It's like last year.
Fucking that stupid ass high alert.
High alert.
Dumb shit.
Yeah. You put on cold blooded, and all of a sudden you don't worry about it no more.
Well, I don't run cold blooded now because high alert ain't worth the fuck anymore.
It's trash.
I'm glad.
Right. And so now there's 2 perks that are a waste of slots. There's no point in picking either of them because they don't do anything. Like that's the thing, right? It's like now you have all this stuff that's worthless. Everybody runs the same 3 perks.
Yeah, give or take a few.
Everybody runs the same stuff. Everybody runs the XM4 or the 7.62.
Well, listen, dude, it's been like that since fucking, like, as far as like the meta bullshit, like, and it will always be that way as long as we have loadouts, dude.
But even in the AMAX, the DMR period notwithstanding, because that was beyond broken.
The only cheese that I ever loved.
But the point is that even during the AMAX, there were other guns that were viable. Even during the Growl period, other guns were viable.
Yeah, the M16,
there were other choices.
Fucking, yeah.
You could snipe, you could run the AR, you could run, you could do all kinds of stuff. And you could win games, and you could be productive, and you could have fun. And what they've done is they said every piece of cheese that they come across, they have to kill because it doesn't work for high-skilled players. because they all just they all just focus on running meta stuff. And that to me is frustrating because it just ruins pubs. And that's why pubs is as sweaty as ranked is. There's no balance. The balance they're trying to get is to make everything level. And Warzone was at its best when everything was unlevel, when everything was cheesy.
It's not level now, dude. It's not, or there wouldn't be a fucking.
It's all the XM4.
It's only the XM4. It's not level.
It's level because the only thing you can pick is the XM4. That makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like you're intentionally playing from a disadvantage if you pick something else.
Oh yeah, I tried this last week. I tried using the Model L. I tried using the AK. I tried the Ames. I just
nope.
You know,
the AK hits hard, but it misses too many shots at range.
It's fucking,
so you're going to lose. Yep. The only thing that stands up to the XM4 is the XMG, but you lose that because it's so slow.
Yep.
So you can't reposition or get off the ledge or whatever fast enough to avoid the XM4. It's like there's a reason the hunt around XM4 is everywhere. Everybody's running.
What do you think? So what do you think then? I asked this on Twitter. What do you think the next meta is going to be? I think it might be the Model L.
Don't we got a new AR?
We do, but I just don't. Just based on looking at it, I don't see how that's gonna.
I mean, the PPSH will be the next SMG.
Yeah, like I don't know. I would have rather they brought back like the Mac 10 or something, dude. Like instead of that.
I like the PPSH.
I never really liked that gun that much. Like
specifically, I liked it in Vanguard or in Cold War, the end of Cold War, because you remember they released it before Vanguard.
Yeah,
I had fun with that. I like that. So one. It was kind of shit in Vanguard era. Though.
I think though with this full auto mod that they're giving, I think that we might see more marksman rifles come into the meta, or at least a couple of those, like that AEK or the SWAT 5.56. Like, I think those could potentially do it. You know, I think that's going to be pretty awesome. That TR2 or whatever, the FAL, basically, that's going to, unless that's like, that's probably going to end up being like 3 tap.
FAL has never been.
Yeah, I never really liked
good.
It. Like, I really wish they'd bring back the Swiss K31. I would fucking, dude. Oh man.
The Fang 82. The Fang 82 will be meta.
Yeah. Yeah.
LMG.
That Cypher just kind of has like Ripper vibes to me. A little bit from Call of Duty Ghosts. It's just like compact, like it doesn't look like you're going to be able to get a lot of range out of it. Like just looking at it. I mean, obviously you'll have to see how it performs, but
I'll bet the full auto mod for the AEK is going to make that thing unusable. It'll have so much. It'll have so much recoil.
Yeah.
Like it'll never be that. The binary trigger will probably make the Tonto a little bit more usable.
What the fuck does that even mean?
So a binary trigger is it's not a burst trigger. It's basically it's a 2-action trigger. So usually on a trigger, when you pull the trigger, it releases the sear, fires the shot, right? Mm-hmm. And then you let go of the trigger and it resets, and it resets the sear, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you pull it again, and then it fires the shot again. So with an automatic trigger, when you hold the trigger down, it keeps the sear from catching. And so then it cycles endlessly, right? Fully automatic.
Okay.
Binary trigger will catch and release the sear on each action of the trigger. So when you depress the trigger, fires the shot and catches the sear and resets. And when you release the trigger, it fires a second shot, catches the sear and resets.
Interesting.
So it fires when you pull the trigger and it fires again when you release the trigger. And so instead of every time you pull the trigger, it's like, every time you click the mouse, right? Click, 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 click. Now imagine there was another mouse button above your finger. So it was click, 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 click.
Interesting.
So it'll effectively double the rate of fire of the Tonto, which, for people who are good at it, because that's a very slow firing gun. But it's very accurate and very damaging at range. So, but it also is one of those things that a lot of people struggle to be able to do both things.
Right.
Rapidly pull the trigger and stay on target. So it'll be kind of a higher skill option.
Mouse and key would probably like that, I bet.
Probably. But, again, I feel like there's still going to be other guns that are better. Because they did binary triggers before. there were a couple of guns that were binary last year.
Yeah, I think we had that conversation. The more I think about it,
And so they weren't good then. Like they were good. Like if you could hit and it was all about the rhythm, right? If you can get the rhythm right, like they were very effective, but it was very difficult to be on rhythm and be accurate. And I think that's where that's going to be a problem again. Belt fed attachment, whatever. LMGs, more bullets. So I think the weapons coming will be interesting. I think unless they can get their handle on how to they need to figure out how to get the cheese going, like the cheesiness back, right? How to make pubs fun. And what they've needed to do from the beginning is you need to make pubs the Wild West. Pubs should, like, public matches, just your standard run of the mill quads should be such a grab bag of you have no idea what you're getting into. Are you going to face a bunch of turtles with RPGs and riot shields on their backs? Are you going to face a comp player? Are you going to face, Timmy No Thumbs with his base skin? Like, what are you going to run into? Who knows?
I've had both of those
Every
things
fight
in those matches.
should be exciting and unknown to you. Ranked should be much more controlled. Like, ranked should probably have a few more controls on it than it does now and be a little bit more restrictive. Not as restrictive as multiplayer ranked is, because that's overkill, where there just is nothing.
Yeah.
But the game should have more. Like public matches should just have way more available to you, and a wider range of skills and a wider range of equipment and a wider range of weapon choices. And there should be vehicles that are fun to use. Look, the choppers are way better than they used to be. Like, it's the best we've had in a while. They're still not great, but like Warzone 1 in Verdansk in 2020, it was great. Not because of the pandemic. It was great not because of the player, some magic unknowable thing. It was great because they didn't try to make it something it's not. Warzone 1 was great because it was chaotic, because there were so many things you could do. And Verdansk was a great map. And as much as people were so tired of it, because 2 years on Verdansk, okay, I get it. Like, we were all tired of it. We all wanted something else. We rapidly realized we were wrong when we got it. But it was like the things that people highlighted a lot of times, and we've talked about this before, the cookie cutter buildings, right? The repeating the building models, the layout, like the things that we thought we hated were actually what made it work really well. And as much as they tried to fix all that for us, like they've just made it miserable. Like, when we go back, like, if they have learned anything, like, we'll find out how much they learned from the mistakes of the past. But man, like, the more I went and looked at OG Verdansk, and this was something when I spent some time in Warzone Mobile, was like, it really hammered this home of like how much you could do in that game in Warzone 1. Like, how many options you had, how many weapon choices and play styles. And what was interesting? Somebody brought this up. How much the downtime was actually good for the game. Like, you weren't in, it was like 20 kills was crazy good.
That was Jack Fragg's video.
Yeah. The downtime was so important in the game. And I get it from like a really high skilled player's point of view. It got boring because there was more downtime. But they've worked really hard to get rid of all the downtime in the game. The game is now a nonstop start to finish. There's no breathing room, and it's miserable for so many people. It's just there's no room for error. There's no room for exploration.
I do like that they've
There's no
taken out
time.
a lot. Like, so pizza boxes are rare.
Which is good.
Not seeing those very much. Yeah, I mean, like the pizza boxes, the gulag tokens are, they're more common, but they're not as common as they used to be. And I picked those up now, by the way. Fuck it. I've made my peace with the idea that I'm not playing a traditional BR. It's a multiplayer crossover with some BR elements to it, but it is what it is. Um, and there's no redeploy packs like those redeploy packs. If they're wanting to slow it down when we get to they've got to increase the cost of the buy and reduce the cash. Dude, we had fucking like $50,000 last night at one point. Like, I think actually we had one match where it was more than that. Like, I had 20 myself. Like, and you get all that money doing contracts and stuff like that. Like, like they've got to do something like that to kind of change up the flow a little bit. But I mean, listen, going into season 2, based on the communications we've received from them and looking at this roadmap, I think multiplayer is going to be great. They're getting more maps. That's cool.
Great maps.
Looking forward to that. We're getting some new weapons. They're introducing some new perks and then making some movement changes, which are welcomed. I think by most everyone, you're going to be able to bunny hop, cut your shoot faster. The velocity with which you're going to the ground is going to be faster. Like, those things are, I think if they
critical,
if they execute it the way it's supposed to be, going to be great. The one thing I want to see more of though is the weapon balancing has got to be a little better, like moving forward, and hopefully it will be. So yeah. I mean, I'm optimistic about season 2. I mean, we have a ways to go though. I mean, let's not sit here and fucking pretend this game is in a great state, because it 100% is not. There are still issues that people are having. So I'm not going to gaslight people.
There are tons of issues.
Yeah.
Not as many issues as EA is having right now, though. Jesus.
Yeah.
That company is just in trouble.
Yeah. So what was it that they lost? It was billions of dollars that they lost, right? Like they showed
$6 billion in like a day.
That's fucking crazy. How is that possible?
It's just market cap. I mean, look, it's not real money. They didn't lose $6 billion. They lost valuation, right? Which, they can come back. It's not like
it's like house values.
This is that thing, right? It's kind of like, it's like your home value.
Yeah.
When I was in real estate, I used to have this problem all the time of like, I tell somebody a home, and then like a month later, they're all pissed off because Zillow says their home is worth less than it was earlier. And I'm like, are you selling your home? They're like, no. Then what do you care? You're not going to sell your home for 5 years, right? Probably.
Yeah.
And I hope you call me when they do. But like, it's not. So whatever Zillow says your value is right now doesn't matter, because in 5 years it'll be completely different. And when unless you want to sell it right now, and that's kind of where EA is with this valuation thing, right? Like, it's not their money. It didn't come out of their pocketbook, right? It's Wall Street's money, and that can all come back. If you have their stock and you want to sell it, all right, well then that sucks for you at this moment in time. But if you're holding it and the next time they have a hit, right? Like if Battlefield does well when it launches, then it doesn't matter what the stock does today, because in 6 months it'll be up, and they'll make $6 billion in a day because they had a good game.
Yeah. All it takes is 1 or 2 good titles and they're back on track.
But, I think there's more systematic problems with a lot of these major studios that are just coming to light of like just poor management. And you know what? I'm going to go and say, I'm going to pin a lot of this on the pandemic. Really, really messed up priorities for studios, messed up their feel for the industry. I'm going to put a little bit on some of the employees, just really changing their opinion on things and how they treat things. And so like, and their priorities, right?
Well, metrics,
a lot of people have
shifted big time, dude. Like with just what they talk about as far as like, from the studios, like the metrics have shifted.
It's like, and so I think the pandemic threw a wrench into the gaming industry. You had a combination of everything but Warzone failed in the pandemic. Like everything failed. Everything that was supposed to come out either got canceled, delayed, or it was terrible.
I mean, Apex had its ups and downs, and it still does. It's just like anything else.
But Apex, Apex really was down. Apex was down. What else was down? Fortnite was down. Everybody was down until, through the whole 2020. And they didn't really get kicked back up until 2021, right? And they really kind of came back then. But Battlefield down bad. You know, every how many games got canceled? A lot of them. You know, you look at like Cyberpunk 2077 was supposed to be the game, turned out to be trash. Better now, good now, from what I hear. But you know, it's been 5 years. Like the thing is, you know, and you just look at like where the industry ended up, and it's like now we're now seeing the fruit of kind of this, of everything planted during this terrible time.
So did you see?
I call it terrible.
Did you see that there's a story out there going around, and I've seen it from a couple different sources about the current development team for Battlefield, and they've had 98% turnover from the original, like from what's considered, I guess, OG Battlefield developers. And I mean, honestly, I think that might be a good thing, and here's why: because the last several Battlefield titles, after Battlefield 4, in my opinion, and a lot of opinion from other people too, they haven't been good. And from what I understand, they're going more for a Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 vibe. They are currently increasing the playtesting. So they're doing playtesting on their multiplayer or sandbox offering, plus their BR offering. So they're free to play BR. So I think that, I mean, that's a good thing. And
which I will probably play and see.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm definitely planning on putting that in rotation just to try it out, see if it stands up.
you know, and Delta Force is actually coming to console. Like they've now got that on their website. And I got to give them props. Their fucking comms since they came out have been incredible. Like just even from just their anti-cheat, like they have an anti-cheat update every week, at least every single week. Like that's awesome, man. Like I like that. I like that kind of communication, and hopefully it stays that way. You know, moving forward.
Well, you have to. I mean, look, you have to when you're a company, when you're in their position, you're new, you're trying to fight your way in. You know, I mean, Delta Force. Let's be honest. You know, they are in an already occupied space, right? Tarkov is the king. They're fighting to, you know, they have to fight off oh god, what is it? The there's like two others out there, right?
It's Tarkov and Gray Zone Warfare and Gray Zone Warfare. I think Arma, maybe. I'm not sure.
Arma. No, there's another one. There's another one that's they had the loot box scandal.
Well, and they're part of the same company as Infinite Breakout, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing about Delta Force, though. Let me tell you this. Delta Force kind of fits a niche as far as just from the extraction shooter side of things, right? Because Tarkov is very slow, right? Gray Zone plays slow and is very technical. Delta Force is a little bit of a faster pace. So like from what I've watched on it and from the few matches that I played in it, it plays like the pacing of it is a little bit better and it's a little more user-friendly.
It fills that Battlefield void.
Well, and they have their warfare side of it too, which is basically a fucking carbon copy of Battlefield. Yeah.
But it's like they're not toe to toe with Warzone directly because they're an extraction.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like they're fighting in a different space. They're fighting they're taking Battlefield into the extraction mode, which, you know, is already got a couple of other things in it, right? You've got Battlefield, you have what's it called? You know, Gray Zone and Tarkov and all these other things in that extraction space. So it's kind of like they have to be different in some way, and it's like they're not going to do it with their gameplay because their gameplay is very, you know, it's accessible, right? But it's kind of like it's still in that it's not as familiar to most people, but the comms are really separating them out. Like the fact that they are addressing this stuff head on is really, I think, what catches people, and like, you know, they hear that more and more, and then they're like more interested in it. I think that drives interest, especially from people that are like, you know, they're fed up with some of these other games that are just really cheat infested and there's nothing they can do. So I think they're really doing a good job of pulling people from other areas into their game versus like, you know, Gray Zone, which is very much a Tarkov competitor a little more direct. Like it's a little more easily accessible Tarkov.
1-to-1 comparison, right? Like 1-to-1.
Yeah.
But, with Delta Force as well, I mean, think about this. Do you think Alex is going to go through all the trouble to basically build another app outside of COD Community and Warzone loadouts if that game doesn't have some kind of staying power? I don't think so.
Well, I mean, it depends. If Warzone's never going to upgrade from the XM4, then there's really no point in having his app out in the first place on Call of Duty.
Fair
right?
point.
It's like you just load it up, XM4, 100 round mag, done. All right.
Well, see you later. But no, I mean, so my point is I think Delta Force is here to stay. In no way am I saying it's a COD killer, because that's fucking silly. And so we got a couple other things to talk about before we end up, but let me finish on Delta Force. The one thing I'll say that I noticed, and I'm not going to act like I mained that game, but I've got a decent amount of playtime in it. There's really no real noticeable bugs that I've run into. It feels very stable. Like I don't remember disconnecting, and everything is fluid and it just works properly. Like I think they did a very good job putting that game together. And I mean, so much so that, I mean, look, Lucci's playing that game a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Stone Mountain 64, I think he even mains that game now. So, I mean, I think it's going to be a good game, and I hope it does well.
Well, I'll say this. It has to be on console. It has to be established on console.
It's coming
before Battlefield.
Yep.
Because Battlefield will kill it.
Oh, for sure.
Like, if Battlefield hits, like, it will kill it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's they are doing to Battlefield what XDefiant could have done to Call of Duty.
Yeah.
They released it the right time. They're capitalizing on it. They have enough of the Battlefield experience that people love. And they've added an additional mode to explore where it's like for people that, okay, they like to dabble with Battlefield, but they don't invest in it. Kind of like how people do with Call of Duty now, where it's like, yeah, they like to hop on a little bit and play a little bit of multiplayer, but then they get tired of it. They get bored of it. They want to do something different. And Call of Duty, one of their strengths, their biggest asset, is that there's so much to do in Call of Duty. Play a little bit of multiplayer, play some zombies, play some Warzone, play some Rebirth, right? Play the campaign, right? There's so much to do in Call of Duty that you don't ever have to leave the game. You don't have to leave Call of Duty to have so many different experiences with the game.
No, I mean, listen, they offer a lot to the player base. And I mean, I know we both saw December, it was the #1 selling game, which is great. It is great. But I think what people have to also understand too, when we're in the space of Twitter or whatever, when people are talking about things that are wrong with the game, minus a few former CDL pros, which we are going to talk about that briefly before we head out, but minus a few CDL pros, a lot of the people on that app are talking about Warzone. And I'm sorry, but actually, I'm not fucking sorry. Black Ops 6 sales are not a reflection on the current state of Warzone. They just aren't.
No,
it's not. They're two separate things. You're not even comparing apples to apples.
If anything, the state of Warzone is driving sales because people don't want to play another game, but they also don't want to play Warzone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for $20, which is preposterous, I've never seen Call of Duty available for $20 brand new.
I haven't either.
In December. Like, ever.
That's crazy.
Unless I'm buying like a 3-year-old. Like I could probably find Black Ops Cold War for $20 now.
Probably, yeah.
Maybe Vanguard. But like last year at this time, let's be clear, Modern Warfare 2 was full price at retail.
Yeah, even on several of the old games.
And it was still selling.
Yeah.
Right? It was still selling. So the fact that we had Black Ops 6, the current game, on the shelf at retail for $20 is hugely problematic in a lot of ways. And I don't know how much of that, I'm going to be clear, I don't know how much of that is Game Pass changing the dynamic, right? Like you can't, why sell that for full price? You're not going to move the units when people could just do Game Pass, but for $20, hey, I'll throw it in the cart. makes a good stocking stuffer for $20.
Yeah.
That's a good deal. So I think we get a lot of the. I think when we take any given number in isolation, right, it doesn't really tell us a good story. You have to. I'm sorry. You have to look holistically at the whole scenario of the game and take those numbers into account. And I'm going to point out that list of games. That was a pretty shitty list of games to be top selling on consoles.
Yeah, I mean, I saw your tweet about that, and I think somebody else more or less said kind of the same thing. Might have been Blame Truth, I think.
I think he quote tweeted me.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things too. It's worth pointing out that especially like when they start talking about like playtime and stuff like that, or most played, when it says Call of Duty HQ, we don't know what the fuck that is. That's everything. So it's hard to really. We shouldn't be jumping to conclusions one way or the other, right? And again, this is not to pile on Warzone. I think Warzone, if they do what they said, we're going to be in much better shape, right? Like it's going to get better. But the fact of the matter is, again, I will circle back. Black Ops 6 has no real reflection on the current state or sentiment towards Warzone. It doesn't. So that's worth pointing out. But you want to know where I feel like the sentiment has kind of changed, or at least something significant happened this week. Call of Duty League, which is owned by Call of Duty, which is owned by Microsoft, has announced their majors scheduled, right? But as part of those majors, which I'm going to Major 2 in March here in Dallas, it'll be at the same event center that Champs was in. But they are adding, I think there's like 3 LAN events for challengers because so those are, for those of you that don't know, the challengers are people that are trying to get into the Call of Duty League. It's more or less kind of like a minor league system in a way. Something that Omid Rafi is very passionate about. Like I watch, see all his tweets about it. And I think he's got a couple different teams, and some former pros have gone down to compete in there if like they don't have a contract with like a bigger team or whatever. So anyway, they're actually having LAN events at like 3 of these majors. I think it's at least 3. So that's great because they were actually concerned about that and what was going to happen with that scene. And I get that they are a quote small minority of the overall player base, but Call of Duty is important. And obviously Activision thinks so too. And Microsoft thinks so too. Or
Microsoft supports it.
Yeah. I mean,
adding LAN events, and I'll point this out. I think the LAN events do really well, to be honest. Like people seem much more invested in events on LAN than they do like other tournaments.
Yeah.
And so I hope to see them grow that. I would love to see more LAN events. This seems a little bit more expensive than last year. Right.
Yeah, it does. So like general admission, I was going to look at like the VIP shit, just cause I wanted floor seats, and fuck, dude, it was almost like $500 after everything was said, because also too, that's not just one ticket. It's 2, it's my son and I, and it was for like all 3 days, which we ended up just backing that down, and looking at just, Sunday. So the championship day, hopefully Optic will be playing in it. We'll go to that same event center in Allen or whatever. And then Major 4, which is hosted by Optic again. And that is going to be in May, towards the end of May, around Memorial Day. But that coincides with DreamHack. So
is that in Dallas too?
That's in Dallas too. So I'm going to be looking into that. I'm not they talked about the tickets being like an add-on to the DreamHack thing. So I'm not entirely sure like how that's going to work, but I definitely want to go, and hopefully we'll have some podcast merch for me to wear while I'm there. That'd be great. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's cool for the comp scene. Like it's great that they're kind of moving forward. They added some minor tournaments this year that we didn't have last year. So it seems like there's a little bit of reorganizing going on when it comes to that. And, they've made big changes since Microsoft acquired Activision anyway, when it comes to that, as far as like the, entry fees for that, for, to have teams, and other teams have sold. Like there's a lot going on that. And this year I'm going to try to be better about watching more of it on YouTube. I am petty and stubborn, and I refused to watch a whole lot of it last year because they took it off of Twitch. But At the end of the day, I really like, competitive Call of Duty, whether it's Warzone or multiplayer. So I'm gonna be better about watching more of that. So
All right, cool. Very good. So I am excited to hear how it goes. Hopefully, starting Tuesday, Warzone rights the ship and begins that process. It's not going to be overnight. Look, I just want to be clear. I don't expect things to fix on day one. I expect day one to bring a lot of changes. Some things will be good. Some things will struggle. There will be a couple of days of fixing stuff that didn't land right, looking for new bugs, and this season will be a process, and I'm okay with a process as long as they are clear about the end result. They were actively working towards it in noticeable ways.
progress.
And by the launch of Verdansk, Warzone is in a good place. That is my expectation. If that is unsuccessful, if they cannot do that, Warzone is going to probably be done for the year for most people. Verdansk will get a week of that's fun. They will, I'm sure, do things that are not acceptable to the map, and Warzone will just be done until next year. And we'll see how well Avalon, or another map if they just scrap Avalon completely, but that we will see how well it handles against GTA 6. So that's kind of like, those are the two paths we're on with Warzone. But that being said, Tuesday is coming, so we will see. We will see if they can execute on what they say.
And the sky's not falling right now, guys. I know, like, for some people, it might feel like it is. The sky's not falling, but also let's acknowledge things are not great. And like Sub said, we just got to get to a point to where progress is being made. I know that's enough for he and I, so hopefully shit gets on the right track, man. Because, while I'm having a decent amount of fun, I know there's a hell of a lot more fun that can be had in this game.
Yep. And with that, we're going to let you go, and we'll catch you on the next one.